The Toolache Wallaby stood a little under a meter tall and inhabited grasslands in southeastern Australia. This elegant and beautifully marked species was described in 1846, but sadly, due to the rapid human expansion in the area at the time, the species was reduced to drastically low numbers by the 1920s. In an attempt to save the species, 14 of the last known animals were rounded up for a breeding program. Sadly, 10 of the 14 died as they were being captured, and only 4 made it into the zoo. They were last officially seen in the wild in 1924, though some sightings persisted into the 1970s, and the last captive animal died in 1924. This is the last picture of the species in captivity, a lone female. This subspecies of the plain zebra was totally unique in its markings. Instead of being covered in stripes, the quagga stripes were restricted to the front half of the body. And instead of being black and white, the quagga was brown and white, with a white belly and white legs. It only lived on the southern part of the African continent, preferring grasslands and arid interior scrublands. Dutch and British colonists ruthlessly hunted the species, believing it to be more abundant than it was. This is one of the last images of the quagga, taken at the Amsterdam Zoo. When she died in 1883, it was seen as a small issue. The zoo simply requested a new specimen be caught, but they didn't realize that the last wild quagga had died about 5 years earlier. And with the loss of this Amsterdam specimen, the quagga was gone forever. Today, there are efforts to breed the quagga back into existence. Perhaps one of the most iconic American extinct species, the passenger pigeon went from being the most numerous species of bird on the entire planet to extinct in only a few decades. With European settlers expanding rapidly through the eastern part of North America and clearing the forests the birds relied on, things were already rough for the species. But add to that excessive commercial hunting practices, and the passenger pigeon didn't stand a chance. This is Martha, the last passenger pigeon, and her photo was taken in 1914. With her death, the passenger pigeon was gone, and the ecosystems of the United States would never be the same again. I also made a video about the passenger pigeon, which you can check out by clicking the banner at the top of the screen. Another iconic American bird species to go extinct is the Carolina parakeet. It was the only indigenous parrot species on the plains of the continent, and there is evidence that it used to even stray into southern Canada. These gregarious birds likely used to number in the millions, and they fed on fruits and seeds, especially the seeds of the cocklebur plants. The seeds of cockleburs are toxic, and evidence suggests that by eating these seeds, the parakeets themselves became toxic, causing predators such as house cats to die from eating them. Evidence also shows that the species had been declining naturally since the end of the last ice age. And by the time Europeans arrived and destroyed eastern forests, the birds had become restricted to Florida. While they were regularly hunted for their feathers and for the pet trade, ultimately their extinction is a mystery. In 1896, a relatively healthy population was noticed that was flocking and producing offspring. But by 1904, they were essentially gone. This picture of the last captive Carolina parakeet, named Incus, is from 1900. Amazingly, Incus was kept in the same cage that Martha had been kept in, who was the last passenger pigeon. And Incus died in 1918, only 4 years after Martha. Speaking of parrots, One of the most strikingly marked was the paradise parrot of eastern Australia. These beautiful birds lived in pairs or in small family groups, and they nested in termite mounds. Being that the species was never extremely common, and due to how remote much of its habitat was, the species' demise is a bit of a mystery. It could have been from cattle grazing, or from land being burned. It could have been hunted for the pet trade, or preyed on by cats and dogs. We'll never know for sure, but following a drought in 1902, the population had practically vanished. This picture of a paradise parrot was taken in 1922. It's a photo of a wild bird as it enters its nest. Sadly, the last official sighting of the species was in 1927, only 5 years after this photo was taken. The Barbary lion was considered a distinct subspecies of African lion that lived in the desert regions of northern Africa. These lions, being found for millennia near some of the biggest epicenters of human civilization, were persecuted relentlessly by people. These are likely the lions that were used for fighting in ancient Rome. They would have inspired the Egyptian goddess Sekhmet. They are the lions of the Bible and the Quran. But immense fear of the lions, coupled with the fact that killing one was viewed as a great sign of strength and bravery, meant that humans often killed them as fast as they found them. Despite this, the Barbary lion persisted into the 20th century. But with the widespread introduction of firearms to the region and bounties for the lion, the last of them was shot and killed in the 1960s. This image, taken from an airplane as someone flew over the Atlas Mountains, is often considered the final photo of the lion, and is particularly compelling because of its beautiful composition. But amazingly, the subspecies is no longer believed to be extinct. Recent genetic research has shown that the Barbary lion is actually part of a single clade present across North Africa, the Middle East, parts of Southern Europe, and Asia. And today, a small population of Asian lions survives in India. The Bubal Hartebeest was the first hartebeest described by science. While it is now known to be one of 8 subspecies of hartebeest, it was described in 1766 and was distinguished from the other subspecies by its uniform sand-colored fur, which it used to blend into the deserts of northern Africa where it once lived. And their main predator was the Barbary lion. The antelope declined quickly in the early 1800s, especially after the French colonized Algeria in the 1830s. Whole herds were shot and killed. Over time, the species disappeared from much of its range before the early 1900s, when the Bubal Hartebeest could only be found in Algeria and Morocco. In 1917, a herd of 15 animals was located, but the man who located them ended up shooting and killing all but 3 of that herd. This is the last picture of a Bubal Hartebeest, and was taken in the Paris Zoo in 1923. The last known wild specimen was shot and killed in Morocco only 2 years later, and the subspecies was gone. The Caribbean monk seal was the only species of seal native to the Gulf of Mexico. The species was once relatively common throughout its range. They would congregate in groups of around 30 individuals, though they were observed in groups of up to 100 at times. They fed on fish and crustaceans, were sluggish on land, and had generally curious dispositions even around people. All of these factors would be their downfall. Their prey was overhunted, leaving less food to support their populations. They were easily attacked and killed on land, as it was hard for them to escape. And their curiosity of people just made it easier for humans to hunt them. They were targeted mainly for oil produced from their blubber, and they were regularly eaten, they were hunted so much that by the 1850s they were already hard to come across. In 1886, a scientific survey found a large number of seals living around a small set of islets. They killed 42 to send to museums around the world. Today, only 2 of those museum specimens survive, both in the UK. This is one of the last pictures of the species. It's one of 4 monk seals acquired by the New York Aquarium. This is another photo of the same group of seals. In 1952, the last confirmed sighting of the species occurred off the coast of Colombia. It has never been seen since. The golden toad was only ever found in one small patch of rainforest in the mountains of Costa Rica. It was discovered in 1966, and every year the species would gather in huge numbers at mating season. In 1987, a normal population of toads was counted during the breeding months. These pictures are one of the last healthy gatherings of the species. Unfortunately, in 1988, scientists only recorded 10 or 11 toads. Finally, in 1989, only 1 male toad was seen. Searches for the species would continue through the 90s, and in 2004, after an expedition to search for the species, the golden toad was officially declared extinct. One factor that's believed to have contributed to their extinction was a major drought in the area in the late 80s, but also the arrival of the amphibian chytrid fungus to Costa Rica, which played a major part. It thickened the toad's skin, causing their systems to shut down and ultimately killed them. Gastric-brooding frogs are extremely unique. There were 2 species. One, the northern gastric-brooding frog, and the other, the southern gastric-brooding frog. Both are found only in extremely small ranges in eastern Australia. They are the only 2 species of frog in the world known to raise their young inside their stomachs. Discovered in the 1970s, it was only a decade later that they both disappeared. These are some of the only images of the species. They gained international notoriety for this picture, but just like the golden toad, it's believed that the amphibian chytrid fungus ultimately wiped them out, though deforestation, habitat disruption, and introduced species probably also played a role. Interestingly, they're part of a project that seeks to bring them back through a process called de-extinction.